Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Narrator Spotlight here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. Many of you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And joining us today on the show, making their official appearance, is a narrator I am super excited to have here. Now, from a very young age, my guest has had a love of books, including reading aloud to any family member that would dare to give her even a moment to start. And before dipping her toes into the world of audiobook narration, she earned the accolade of lifelong thespian, having several plays and musical credits to her name. In addition to her theater acting endeavors, she cultivated, studied, and truly worked on her vocal range to use her voice for choirs, musicals, customer service, and reading books to her son. An avid lover of all things books, animals, crocheting, murder mystery parties, and many a nerdy hobby, she has been flexing her acting skills in various forms for 10 years. You can catch her as one of the DMs of her D&D group, getting into character at Renaissance fairs, at aforementioned murder mysteries, and of course, while narrating books. She is excited to keep developing her narrator's voice and expanding her portfolio. While she lived coast to coast in the US and briefly overseas in China, she currently resides with her husband and child, along with a collection of pets in the suburbs of North Carolina. And this guest is very, very special to me because this individual did an incredible narration for a project of mine that I am in the works. I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but believe me when I tell you, when it drops, and it will be dropping hopefully before the end of this year, you will be absolutely amazed. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a huge round of applause to our guest today, narrator Adrianne Jennings. Adrianne, welcome
Hi.
to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome, Adrianne. I am so excited to have you here on the show finally, and just so excited to learn about your background and everything.
Yeah.
So, before we dive into your background in the audiobook industry and a little bit about your time in the theater world, what's a random fact about you that not a lot of people know about?
Oh gosh. That not a lot of people know. I mean, if you want to if you want to say a really weird fact, I can make a clover with my tongue. Best I got for you right off the top.
All right, all right. And since we are talking about narration, Adrian, what
Yeah.
are some of the typical genres that you like to work in? What are some genres
Ooh.
that you really want to get into given the chance?
Yeah, so fantasy has always been at the very, very top, and I haven't had a chance to narrate like a true fantasy story yet. So far, I've done a really, really sweet romance for an author. I've done yours, which is kind of historical fiction. I'm actually working on a sci-fi one right now, so I'm getting closer and closer to that fantasy genre that I really, really, truly love. But not quite there yet.
Nice, very, very nice. So let's start at the very beginning, Adrian. So
Mhm.
from the get-go, from your bio, you've always been a very creative person. You loved reading books
Yes.
aloud to your family and friends.
Mhm.
And of course, you got into acting as well as working in theaters, musicals, and more. So I'm very curious, which sort of came first? Was it the audiobook passion and then the theater world, or is it the reversal?
So, if you're talking audiobooks specifically, that one came after theater. If you're talking about books
Okay.
in general, obviously, I've been reading books or listening to other people read books for years and years and years. I remember pretty vividly annoying my grandma over the summer when she would watch us for my mom, just sitting in the bathroom while she was getting ready for work and reading every single day, no matter if she was listening or not. So I guess reading aloud has always been there for me, but the actual audio going into audiobooks and going into narrating came way after that, the whole acting aspect of things.
All right, all right. So when you got started in the world of audiobook narration, what really surprised you about the industry that you didn't know before?
Oh, how much went into it? Obviously, when everybody thinks of audiobook narrating, it's just, oh, they just read you a story. But it's so much more than that. It's creating the characters. It is becoming those characters. It is interpreting how it's supposed to make someone feel. And then on top of that, all of the editing and mastering that comes along with it to actually make it sound good.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's another thing people, especially those who have not worked with narrators in the past, something that I've learned working with narrators
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of my books and for snippets, a lot of work goes into it. And there's a reason why a lot of narrators specifically say a specific word count, either for snippet reads or for narration reads, because it does take a lot of time because,
Mm-hmm.
and this is won't be too much of an won't disclose too much information, but for viewers and listeners who want to work with narrators for like snippet reads, to give you a sense, 2,000 words is roughly, depending on the narrator, maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes, depending on the mastering, the editing, and everything like that. There's a lot that goes into just maybe 20 minutes of narration. And
Mm-hmm.
even for like 1 hour, that's a lot of edits, it's a lot of redos, it's a lot that goes into it. So, do you remember the first project you ever worked on when you began your career as a narrator?
I do. Yeah, it was that the sweet romance that I mentioned earlier. It was a I kind of dipped my toes into a book that wasn't quite as long as like a fantasy or even a sci-fi book or anything like that. And I did that because I wanted a little bit of space so that I can figure things out as it were as I was working on it. But it was about a 5.5 hour listen.
Dang. That is a lot. That is a lot. And I think also something that is important to talk about is the setup for narrators. That's a thing that a lot of people don't take into consideration is that for anyone wanting to be a narrator or voice actor
Mhm.
working in the audiobook industry, you need certain types of mics, you need certain places in your house to do recordings. I've talked with a lot of narrator friends, and I always find them whenever we do these interviews either in a closet or a hole in the wall for their recording
Yep.
sessions because it's the only place where it like muffles out the outside noise,
Yeah.
or it's outside the house in a little shed, and that's their recording studio.
Yeah, I'm in a closet right now because it's the quietest place in my house, and it wasn't really being. It's in a guest room, so it's not used very frequently, and I can just close it away when I don't need it and have it open if I do.
That's true. That is very, very true. So ultimately, Adrianne, when you began this journey into the audiobook industry, bless me,
Bless you.
sorry. Thank you. When you got into this industry and started, finding out, what set of genres worked best for you, what were you more interested in? Ultimately, at the end of the day, what was the promise you're making, not just to yourself, but also to the client you're working with, as well
Yeah.
as your business mindset when approaching a project like this?
Sure. So the big thing for me, so for funny enough, audiobooks were really hard for me to get into personally, not as a job, but listening to. Because I have just a tiny bit of ADHD. And it's enough that it's sometimes hard for me to focus when I'm listening to things. And I found that with audiobooks, it's really difficult to find really good narrators to that capture you, or at least I all of the ones I found initially were. And that's kind of what has steered me in this journey, and kind of what I'm trying to bring is I want what I do to be easy to listen to. I want it to be easy to kind of cling on to so that you can follow it. And I want to make sure that I'm not I'm not a hard listen, if that makes sense. But obviously, I'm a real person. I'm a real voice, and I would much prefer to listen to that over something artificial or something flat. So I do my best to try and bring my all to the book and to make it feel like a story and that you're living instead of one that you're just listening to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, let's talk about some of the characters that you have played in these different audiobooks. Now,
Mhm.
who has been your favorite character to voice for, and which character
Mm,
was probably the most challenging, which either may have been like an accent or maybe the age of the character really threw you off?
sure. Sure. I think the most fun that I've had was in that sweet romance playing the mom because I got to have a lot of leeway with her. She was a character she's a character that is very pushy and very demanding. And I got to I got to pull all of my inspiration from my mom or my aunt and just go forth and have fun and just give her a little bit of crazy personality while kind of making her one of those characters that you're like, I know somebody that is exactly that way, that talks exactly like that. So I totally understand how the female main character is feeling when she talks about her. So that is probably the one that I had the most fun with. As far as challenging, um, I would have to say ooh, that one's more difficult. I mean, any male character for a female
Hmm.
obviously is gonna be a little challenging just because it's not in our normal register, so we have to try and figure out different ways to use our voice in a deeper register, but make them all sound different and distinct. So any books with multiple main male characters in the same scene can be a little bit challenging, but I don't know that there's any specific character that I so far have found to be more challenging than the others.
Absolutely. And I think also to add to that, I think, and I've actually heard this from like other narrators and watching other interviews for female narrators who voice male characters or even voice actors who voice male characters. It's typically, either adolescent or preteen. In
Mhm.
the case of probably one of the most famous voice actors, Tara Strong, who
Yes.
voiced Timmy Turner and Ben 10,
Mhm.
and she has a wide range, but her voice is good enough to, play, Timmy Turner for that high pitch voice.
Yeah.
I mean, for Ben 10, that slightly deeper gruff, where for a long time I didn't even know that that was Tara Strong voicing
Yeah.
Ben 10. It was just that good. So I think that's probably like the only leeway for like any female narrators or any female voice actors who voice
Mhm.
male characters. It has to be like that caveat. And it's kind of the same thing for male characters also have to voice female
Yeah.
characters as well. It's the same thing. Like that's a very challenging role to do. But there are instances where sometimes one narrator will voice multiple characters
Mhm.
across, an entire series, and that's a lot of work to put on, one's voice. Let's actually talk a little bit about that,
Yeah.
Adrian. Whenever you go into your setup, what sort of vocal exercises do you do to get your voice ready for today? And
Sure,
how do you
yeah.
not like destroy it after the end?
Yeah, so, the biggest thing that you'll hear from me and from anybody is hydration. I always have water or tea or both, and I am drinking all day long, every day. Um, as far as exercises, I pulled a lot, of what I do from my theater background, because vocal warm-ups are always a big thing in theater. We were in a tiny little black box, so there was no mics, except for musicals when songs were involved. So you had to make sure that your voice was able to project and carry to everybody in the theater. So it's a lot of like tongue twisters and lip trills and things like that. But because I spend most of my day talking, because I have a toddler that is constantly talking to me, um, I don't need to warm up quite as much as I would if I wasn't talking all day. Um, because naturally my voice is already warmed up by the time I come in to record, which is usually around nap time,
Mhm.
or at the very end of the day when he's already asleep.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I want to reiterate. So, your schedule's like usually like when your son's like already asleep, so that way he's not like interfering with
Yeah,
scheduled time.
as far as recording goes, yeah, obviously there's a lot of stuff that goes on that doesn't involve sitting in front of a mic, and a lot of that I can do while he's still awake, but if it's anything involving the microphone, that is always when he is knocked out, asleep, and not my problem anymore.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now let's jump forward in time a little bit. So, when did you feel comfortable sharing with friends and family that you had embarked on this new journey of yours? And what were some of the reviews like from the authors that you worked with on like either small projects or full on books?
Yeah, so, I actually joked with my sister for about a full year, before actually jumping into the deep end, as it were, into narration. So she has kind of always known that roads would lead here. I think I announced to more of my family uh, that I was doing this when I got my first offer for my first book. And from family, I've nothing but support from them. Obviously, my mom and my sister kind of grew up with me reading all the time. So they kind of expected something like this to potentially happen. Um, and I think, other than my sister, my aunt has been my biggest supporter. She has left me the biggest glowing review that I've ever seen um, on my first book. But the authors that I've worked with, at least because I am relatively new, so I don't have too many books under my belt. The ones that I have worked with, I've heard really good things from them. One of them, it has me on her list for future books, if ever she has any. Um, and everybody else that I've worked with, I've heard good things. So hopefully they meant it.
That's awesome. That is really, really cool. Now, I think we already talked about this in the beginning about the genres that you
Hmm.
like to work with. But let's dive a little bit deeper. Do you think that there is what's the one I'm thinking of? An art to the genre voices when it comes to narration. Because I think from what I've listened to for a few audiobooks, if you're reading a thriller story, the voice has to match the genre. And what would your sort of like be your advice for any potential narrators who want to go into the industry and understand if you're going to be a, let's say, thriller based narrator or an 18 plus narrator for certain, for like spicy books? What's the things they really have to understand about the industry beyond the stereotype that, oh, it's just making, you know, funny voices? It's not. It's acting, and it should be
It's
treated
not.
as acting.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing that I would really want any potential narrator to think about and to do first is to listen to other audiobooks, other narrators, because I agree. Every genre I feel like has a specific tone that narrators tend to kind of move towards, and if it is a genre that you're trying to get into, um, getting close to it, not obviously not being exactly the same, because that's not the point. Is you want your authentic voice to be the one reading. You don't want to just mimic what everybody else is doing. Um, but kind of figuring out what your own tone is and what you're comfortable reading as will kind of help steer you in the direction of what books are going to be best for you. Um, I'm still kind of trying to figure that out, being a little new. So at this point, I practice with every audition that even remotely interests me, changing up tones and figuring out which one I like the best. Which is why I have sci-fi plus romance in, my list of books. But yeah, listening to audiobooks has been a huge help for me since really becoming a narrator or thinking about it, just to hear all of the different, all of the different voices out there and kind of what people are looking for in those specific genres.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now let's talk about a little bit of what it means to be a narrator in the digital age, especially with the rise of AI narration
Hmm.
and AI narrated books, because whew, that could be an episode
Yes.
in and of itself. But
Yes, it could.
I would like to hear your thoughts on, for you, when you started making your online presence, how did you go about marketing yourself? And this actually ties into a fan question that I actually received not too long ago on my website. And this viewer would like to ask, for any narrators, do you feel that, because they saw human voices only on their feed, that human voices only is, in a way, a networking opportunity for narrators and authors, but also, in a way, a marketing day for narrators to showcase their ranges?
Yeah, I do, very much so, and I think Um, it's twofold, obviously. Like, it does help us as narrators because it does get more of our voice out there. It gives us the chance to do different snippets from different genres that we haven't been able to get into yet, or that we're interested in maybe trying out just to see how it is. But it also helps out, those authors that want their words out there and haven't been able to get them there yet. Those authors that, have great ideas or almost have a full book or do have a full book, but don't quite have the funds or the means to actually get a full narration done by a human, and are choosing to not go the easy route, and just have an AI voice it for cheap or free. Um, So I posted quite a lot of snippets on my Instagram, for Human Voices Only, part of which was from your project.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I had the best time working with some authors to get those put out. And the amount of amazing content that I saw all over the internet that day was so, so heartwarming, that people want to hear from real people. They don't want to hear stories that were from a computer.
Absolutely. I think this human voices only event was probably like the best I've seen, because it was probably the one time in like the whole human voices only, because I kind of got in late in terms of like being an author and working with narrators for human voices only. I think this is the only year that I probably had my all four of my books narrated by different authors. And some, of course, you think about, just like indie authors, narrators are such good friends with others. There is, of course, oh, I'm gonna be so bad with the names, but Josie narrates. Uh,
Hmm.
oh, Michaela, who also narrated a snippet of mine. Oh, I'm gonna be so bad. I'm so sorry for the people if I forget your names, but all of you guys were incredibly talented, and it's also really cool to like listen to, again, as you said, the ranges that audiobook narrators have, because a computer can't replace that. It
Hmm.
can replicate it, but actually it can imitate but never replicate.
Yes.
And that is honestly the most beautiful thing. And this actually leads to another fun fan question, because this actually ties into something that another narrator friend of mine did for one of my books. Shout out to Ember M. Saw her bloopers for her human voice only, made me laugh. This fan would like to know, what is some of the most funniest bloopers you have had in recording booth?
Ooh. Oh, let's see if I have any specifics I can think of. I probably don't have as many as I would think. A lot of the times, I can't think of any off the top of my head. I did have quite a few, from Human Voices Only. Um, there have been. I try really hard not to do this because, part of my prep for a book is to go through and, actually highlight and figure out who says what. But, I have had a couple of bloopers where I mix up who is saying what, and then you get a male character saying something obviously feminine. But a lot of times it's just messed up words because I'm trying to say something too fast, and um, yeah, I don't have anything specific off the top of my head.
Is there a certain
But
word that has thrown you off in a recording booth? Because I know that that has happened for a lot of narrators. There's one word or a set of words that
ooh,
always throws narrators off, especially if it's in character.
if let's see, and anything with lots of S's, it doesn't matter what the word is. If there are not just S's together, but multiple um multiple instances of an S in a word or a phrase, that trips me up, and then I end up just like hissing into the microphone from frustration. But I haven't come across any words that have tripped me up so much that I had to stop and walk away, thankfully. But I guess I've just been so far reading pretty easy things. We'll see how this sci-fi one goes, because I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that I'm going to find in there that's going to trip me up quite a bit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now let's go back a little bit to the marketing side of being a narrator, especially in the
Mm-hmm.
digital age, because the industry has changed over the last, 20 years or so. And what I mean by that is, and I talked to a lot of narrators on this topic from what I've seen as just a viewer, is that, for a long time, audiobook narration and voice acting were done by professionals in the industry. You had people from theater, from Broadway, from
Yeah.
television narrating books. I mean, look at the Harry Potter audiobooks with the full
Oh,
cast.
I
Those are some of
know.
the best people like in the industry, and that's amazing. But I think as time has gone on, and I think definitely the pandemic was definitely part of this, you had other people who may not be classically trained in a sense of gone to voice acting school or narration school,
Mm-hmm.
but they've done the work, they've done the research, they've trained, they prepped. And you've also had a lot of people from theater and choir and musicals making the transition into the world of
Mm-hmm.
voice acting. And it's very, very incredible to see, the rise of what I like to call indie narrators.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot goes into being an indie. It's a lot of hard work, it's a lot of dedication, and ultimately, imposter syndrome and what I like to call the narrator's block is always going to be there. And what I mean by that, viewers
Mm-hmm.
and listeners, is that just like us writers who have writer's block because you can't write something down, for narrator's block, there's probably either a voice that a narrator remembers doing but can't, bring themselves to find that click or that word or even a phrase that gets them back
Mm-hmm.
into the mindset. So ultimately, Adrian, with all that, how do you stay disciplined and motivated, especially in an industry that is teeter-tottering between, human voices and AI narration, especially when we see commercials as well using AI generated
Yeah.
images and AI narration?
Yeah. I guess what really keeps me going is just knowing that I can be one more person fighting the fight. If I were to give up because it's easier to use AI or more people are starting to lean that direction, then that's giving up the fight. And if I can be one more person that convinces somebody that AI doesn't need to be used or there are other options, then I'll do what I can.
Nice. Well said. Very, very well said. Now we're going to do some rapid fire fan questions,
Okay.
which I know a lot of people enjoy, absolutely enjoy. Now, Adrian, as mentioned before, you are a big reader. You absolutely
Yep.
love to read. Which do you find to be, or actually, that's the next question. I jumped ahead. Which is your preferred themes or tropes in stories?
Ooh, I love a good trope. Um, but I'd have to say themes.
All right. All right. Now, following that, this is
Mhm.
a two-parter. Which trope is overrated and which is underrated?
Mm. Um, I think for overrated tropes, I okay, let me just start off by saying I do love this trope, but I see it way too much. The enemies to lovers.
Yes.
Um, I do love a really good enemies to lovers book, but there's too many. There's too many out there, and I get why there is because everybody likes them. Um, but it's too much. And then as far as underrated, um, I don't know that I have a good answer for that one.
I think if there's one I could throw my hat in, it would either be found family or
Oh, that is
lovers to
good.
enemies. I've seen there's not a lot of lovers to
There's
enemies.
not. That is true. That is true. And when it's done really well,
Mhm.
it is a very satisfying story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, here's the next one. As a narrator, which you find to be the most difficult in terms of the five senses? In essence, which of the five senses is difficult to showcase in narration?
Um, Seeing is easy, obviously, because you're describing things, you're reading things, so that one's pretty easy. Same with hearing. I would say probably it's between taste and touch. And the reason I think if I had to pick one, I would lean more towards touch. And the reason I say that is because if you think about all of the like game show things where they have the box in front of you where you can't see into it and you have to reach in and you have to feel whatever it is and then try and guess what it is. Even if you're describing something, you can only describe it so well um, to a person. They won't be able to actually feel it, and I think that they would get it's kind of hard to explain every bit of it in a way that makes them feel like they're feeling it, whereas you can explain, you can describe how a smell is to someone, and there's something that they can immediately think of that is that smell, or that has that smell. There's something that you can explain or describe with a specific taste, and immediately you can think of multiple things that make you think of that taste. But touch, I think, can be a little difficult, in my
Absolutely.
opinion.
That's very true. That is very, very true. Also, in the same breath, as a narrator, how do you make a scene or a moment feel suspenseful and or enticing to the listener?
Yeah, pace. It's all about pacing. It's all about how you deliver it. Obviously, if it's a super emotional scene, you don't want to go through it super fast, because you want that tiny bit of suspense, and you want the person listening to it to kind of feel exactly what it is that the characters are feeling or that you're feeling as you're reading it. Um, Whereas if it's a big action scene, if you take too long, they won't feel that suspense and the anxiety that the characters also are feeling in the moment because everything is happening so quickly. So
Mhm.
pacing is the whole thing for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now we're going to take a little tangent from the rapid fire
Mhm.
questions. Talk about one that I think is very important. And these are actually two. And the first one is the power of saying no. And this is an old question. I haven't asked a lot of narrators in a very, very long time. Because I think, for narrators, and a lot of narrators have talked about this on the show and shared their thoughts, it's the sense of when you are starting out in something new, you want to be a part of everything you can. You want to be a part of every new thing, whether that's a new upcoming book or work with this amazing author. because everyone says, oh, they're a great author or the stories are amazing. But I think what's important to note, especially for narrators, and it can this be for anybody, it's just because something or someone may be cool or amazing or enticing, it may not be the best fit for you. Whether that
Mm-hmm.
be either their stories are perfect, but you may not be the right narrator, or the contents of the story don't align with your own personal values, and thus you have to say no. And this goes into the 15-minute rule. What is the 15-minute rule, viewers and listeners? Well, as I've been instructed by a lot of good narrator friends of mine, the 15-minute rule is the beginning of the project. That is where the narrator will record a few minutes, no more than 15, of either a scene with one of the characters involved. That is for us, the authors, to give the final say of, in the sense of, hey, I love this, let's continue, or B, can we change a little bit, or even C, I'm sorry, but I don't think you're the best fit. So, Adrian, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this discussion of saying no in the narration industry.
Yeah. So, especially for, like you said, for someone new starting out, saying no can be very difficult because you're trying to get your name out there, right? You're trying to do as many projects as you can so that you have more titles under your belt so that more authors are going to see you and think, well, they have more experience, so let's go with them instead of this other person who I feel, equally about. So for a newer narrator, it can be a little difficult. But sticking with your values is a huge thing, especially like we talked about human voices only.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of books up on ACX right now, and pretty much all the time, that are so blatantly, obviously AI, in pictures, in the full writing, and it's people that just want to make some free money by having AI write a book for them and then having a real person narrate it, so that it seems like it's not an AI book. And I personally don't look at those at all. I scroll right past them. They're not even an option for me. Even as a new narrator, I would not pick a book like that, because I don't believe in using it to create stories or write books or have information. There's plenty of other people out there. There's plenty of other books that have been written. If you need that information, the human mind is so powerful that we don't need a computer to write it for us.
Absolutely, well said. Now let's go into the second most important question, and that is, this actually goes back to something that another narrator had on the show. I want to say maybe earlier in the year, brought to my attention, which is the notion that uh, narrators can be voice actors, but voice actors cannot be narrators. And she broke it down. Narrators are trained to work on long form narration. Voice actors are not, in the sense of they're only good for like short form content, and especially for commercials or scenes in like a TV show. I would like to hear
Mhm.
your thoughts onto that, because as I'm sure you've probably seen, there are a lot of people in the voice acting industry, especially who are indies, who have both titles to them. It either says that they are a narrator and a voice actor, or either one or the other.
Yeah, so narrating definitely is long form. You're in it for the long haul. You're reading descriptive text, you're reading dialogue, you're reading it all. Whereas voice actors, they're just um, doing dialogue or sounds or um, maybe environmental sounds, but mostly character sounds or animal sounds um, or actual dialogue between other people. And I know that this isn't the norm, but I know that there are some voice actors that get the chance to actually sit in the same room and actually have a dialogue back and forth for their TV show or their movie or whatever it is that they're recording. But the story itself is already there. They are providing the character, and they're usually just doing one. Obviously, there are exceptions. There are some amazing voice actors out there that do multiple voices in one TV show. Like Jim Cummings is the first one that comes to mind. Obviously, he does Winnie the Pooh and Tigger and a whole host of other characters on Disney. But as a narrator, you generally, obviously there are exceptions, but as a narrator, you are not only trying to give the emotion and life to the characters, but then you're also providing the descriptive background. You're providing the setting. You're providing everything else that's happening at the same time. And it takes a lot more patience, I think, doing narration work, because you're having to switch back and forth between the narrative words and then the dialogue of the characters that are living in that world.
Absolutely. Very true. Very, very true, Adrian. And as we wrap up this incredible narrator interview, we have one final question.
Sure.
And it's a very long-winded question. So
Okay.
here is the question. So we talked about, a little bit of your background in theater. We talked about, your family and some of the projects you've worked on and some projects that you would like to work on in the future. At the end of the day, what is something that you want writers to take away from your performance in their project? And secondly, are there any people you would like to give a personal shout out to who have helped you on the way? Because for us indies, the communities we make are the families we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I've kind of already done a few of my shout outs. A lot of my biggest supporters have been family members, my sister, my aunt, my mom, but the just communities in general, all over Instagram, all over social media, like every voice actor or audiobook narrator that I've had a chance to even just quickly chat to in comment sections or just engagements have been fantastic. One of the biggest cheerleaders, I think, for newer narrators right now is Alice Socket. And she is a lovely human who shares tips and tricks. And there's a lot of other narrators and voice actors that do as well. So I think that just the community of narrators in general on social media have been fantastic. But what I would really like to kind of put out there into the world is that I want listeners, and I want other narrators, and I want other authors to just know that it's hard work putting something creative that you have made out there into the world, because it's part of you. There's bits and pieces of you that you've put into every project. And for me personally, I have done some writing on the side when I was younger, so I know kind of what it's like to take the time to plan it all out and to spend hours and hours over one page of written work and just second guessing yourself. But it's all worth it. It's all worth it. And for me, for any project that I work on, I want to make sure that what you envision as an author is what I give to you, because I want the narration to be exactly what you picture it to be. Because that's what I do. I bring your story to life. I don't create it. I don't make it my own. I don't turn it into something that it's not. I just give your words and your characters a voice.
Beautifully said, Adrian. Beautifully said. And on that note, viewers and listeners, we conclude this incredible narrator spotlight here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I want to give a huge thank you to Adrianne for coming on the show, making her official debut.
Yeah.
And hopefully not the last time we see her on the show. Adrianne, where can people find you on the interwebs if they want to reach out and connect? as well as check out some of the narration you've done for the books you've mentioned.
Yeah, so ACX for authors that are looking for a narrator. I am on there. Instagram is probably the easiest place to find me. It's at AJ or A Jennings Books on Instagram, and that will have links to everything else. My books so far, obviously yours is coming out later, but Audible is currently where my books are and where they'll probably stay for a little bit until I'm able to wrangle something a little bit bigger. But
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll link all that down below in the description of this video. And as I said earlier, my secret project with Adrianne will be dropping later this year, which I'm very excited. I want to give too many spoilers to it, but be on the lookout for Adrianne's second appearance later this year. Fingers crossed, because this special project that I've been working on is something that is entirely new to me, and I want to give a huge appreciation to everyone who was involved. So be on the lookout for that. And if I see Adrianne in an episode of the Writers Hub series, where she's actually joined with an author that she's worked with to talk about that relationship of the writer's journey and the narrator's journey, you know what you have to do. Like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out, wishing you all a wonderful day, evening, or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you all next time.
bye.